in Monday, December 21st, known as the first day of winter, 1891, 4 days before Christmas Day, via 3 days before Christmas Eve. Jimmy Naismith, a Canadian-American professor of physical education and instructor at the International Young Men's Christian Association Training School, later known as Springfield College, in Springfield, Massachusetts, was trying to keep his gym class active in a rainy day. He sought a vigorous indoor game to keep his students occupied and at proper levels of fitness during the long New England winters. After rejecting other ideas, as either too rough or poorly suited to walled-in gymnasiums, he invented a new game in which players would pass the ball to teammates and try to score points by tossing the ball into a basket mounted in a wall. Jimmy Naismith wrote the basic rules and nailed a peach basket onto an elevated track. Jimmy Naismith initially set up the peach basket with its bottom intact, which meant that the ball had to be retrieved manually after each basket or point scored. This quickly proved tedious, so Jimmy Naismith removed the bottom of the basket to allow the balls to be poked out with a long dowel after each scored basket.
Basketball was originally played with a soccer ball. These round balls from the association football were made, at the time, with a set of laces to close off the hole needed for inserting the inflatable bladder after the other sewn-together segments of the ball's cover had been flipped outside in. These laces could cause bounce passes and dribbling to be unpredictable. Eventually a lace-free ball construction method was invented, and this change to the game was endorsed by Jimmy Naismith, whereas in American football, the lace construction proved to be advantageous for gripping and remains to this day. The first balls made specifically for basketball were round, and it was only in the late 1950s that Paul D. Hinkle, searching for a ball that would be more visible to players and spectators alike, introduced the orange ball that is now in common use. Dribbling was not part of the original game except for the bounce pass to teammates. Passing the ball was the primary means of ball movement. Dribbling was eventually introduced but limited by the asymmetric shape of early balls, dubious and/or discussed. Dribbling was common by 1896, with a rule against the double dribble by 1898.
The peach baskets were used until 1906, when they were finally replaced by metal hoops with backboards. A further change was soon made, so the ball merely passed through. Whenever a person got the ball in the basket, his team would gain a point. Whichever team got the most points won the game. The baskets were originally nailed to the mezzanine balcony of the playing court, but this proved impractical when spectators in the balcony began to interfere with shots. The backboard was introduced to prevent this interference. It had the additional effect of allowing rebound shots. Jimmy Naismith's handwritten diaries, discovered by his granddaughter in early 2006, indicate that he was nervous about the new game he had invented, which incorporated rules from a children's game called Duck on a Rock, as many had failed miserably before it.
The NBA has featured many famous players, including George L. Mikan Jr., the first dominating big man, ball-handling wizard Robert Joseph Cousy, and defensive genius William Felton Russell of the Boston Celtics, charismatic center Wilt and Norman Chamberlain, who originally played for the barnstorming Harlem Globetrotters of Manhattan, New York, USA, all-around stars Oscar Pago Robertson and Jerome Allen West, more recent big men Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Sr., Shaquille Diesel O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Karl Malone, playmakers Jonathan Houston, Stockton, Isiah, Lord Thomas, and Stevie Jonathan Nash, crowd-pleasing forwards Julius Winfield Erving Jr., and Charles Way Barkley, known as the lead music member of Quad DJ European stars Dirk Nowitzki, Gasol, and Bill Tony Parker Jr., Latin American stars Manu and Billy McAree, more recent superstars Isiah Iverson, Kobe Bean Bryant, Timothy T. Duncan, LeBron Raymond James I, Ordell Stephen Troy Jr., Giannis Hugo Antetokounmpo, etc., and the three players who many credit with ushering the professional game to its highest level of popularity during the 1980s and 1990s, Lawrence Joseph Bird, Earvin Johnson Jr., and finally Michael Jeff Jordan I.
In 2001, the same year before the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the NBA formed a developmental league, the National Basketball Development League, later known as the NBA D-League and then the NBA G-League after a branding deal with Gatorade. As of the 2021 through the 2022 seasons, the G-League has 30 teams.
The Federation International Basketball Authority was formed in 1932 by 8 founding nations, such as Argentina, the Czechoslovakia Republic, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Portugal, Romania, and Switzerland. At this time, the organization only oversaw amateur players. Its acronym, derived from the French Fédération Internationale de Basketball Amateur, was thus the FIBA. Men's basketball was first included at the Berlin 1936 Summer Olympics, although a demonstration tournament was held in 1904. The United States of America has already defeated Canada in the first final, played outdoors. This competition has usually been dominated by the United States of America, whose team has won all but 3 titles. The first of these came in a controversial final game in Munich, Germany, 1972 against the Soviet Union or Russia, mainly known as the USSR, in which the ending of the game was replayed 3 times in a row, until the USSR's team has finally came out on top. In 1950, the first FIBA World Championship for men, now known as the FIBA Basketball World Cup, was held in Argentina. 3 years later, the first FIBA World Championship for women, now known as the WFIBA's Basketball World Cup, was held in Chile. Women's basketball was added to the Olympics in 1976, which were held in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, with teams such as the USSR, Brazil and Australia rivaling the American squads.
In 1989, the FIBA allowed the professional NBA basketball players to participate in the Olympics for the first time. Prior to the 1992 Summer Olympics, only European and South American teams were allowed to field professionals in the Olympics. The United States dominance continued with the introduction of the original Dream Team in the 2004 Athens Olympics. The United States suffered its first Olympic loss while using professional players, falling to Puerto Rico in a 19-point loss and Lithuania in group games, and being eliminated in the semi-finals by Argentina. It eventually won the third-place bronze medal, defeating Lithuania, finishing behind Argentina and Italy. The Redeem Team won the first-place gold at the 2008 Olympics, and the B Team has also won the first-place gold at the 2010 FIBA World Championship in Turkey. Despite featuring no players from the 2008 squadron, the people, sports fans, and sports staff members of the United States of America continued its dominance as they won gold at the 2012 Olympics, the 2014 FIBA World Cup and the 2016 Olympics.
Around the world per universe, all basketball tournaments are held for boys and girls of all age levels. The global popularity of the sport is reflected in the nationalities represented in the NBA. Players from all 6 inhabited continents currently play in the NBA. Top international players began coming into the NBA in the mid-1990s, including Croatians Drazen Petrovic and Toni Kukoc, Serbian Vladivac, Lithuanians Arvydas Sabonis and Sarūnas Marciulainis, Dutchman Rick Smits and German Ditlev Schrempf.
In the Philippines, the Filipino-Tagalog Basketball Association's first game was played on Wednesday, April 9, 1975, at the Araneta Coliseum in Cubao, Quezon City, Philippines. It was founded as a rebellion of several teams from the now-defunct Manila Industrial and Commercial Athletic Association, which was timely controlled by the Basketball Association of the Philippines, which was now defunct. The then FIBA-recognized National Association. 9 teams from the MICAA participated in the league's first season that opened on Wednesday, April 9, 1975 continuously. The NBL is Australia's preeminent men's professional basketball league. The league commenced in 1979, playing a winter season, from April to September, and did so until the completion of the 20th season in 1998. The 1998 through the 1999 season, which commenced only months later, was the first season after the shift to the current summer season format. From October to April. This shift was an attempt to avoid competing directly against Australia's various football codes. It features 8 teams from around Australia, and 1 in New Zealand. A few players including Luke Longley, Andrew Gaze, Shane Heal, Christopher Anstey and Andrew Bogut made it big internationally, becoming poster figures for the sport in Australia. The Women's National Basketball League began in 1981.
Women's basketball began in 1892 as the WNBA at Smith College when Cindy Berenson-Abbott, a physical education teacher, modified Jimmy Naismith's rules for women. Shortly after she was hired at Smith, she went to Naismith to learn more about the game. Fascinated by the new sport and the values it could teach, she organized the first women's collegiate basketball game on Tuesday, March 21, 1893, known as the first day of spring. One day after winter ended until Thursday, December 21 repeatedly, and 4 days after St. Patrick's Day ended, when her Smith freshmen and sophomores played against one another. However, the first women's interinstitutional game was played in 1892 between the University of California and Miss Head School. Miss Berenson-Abbott's rules were first published in 1899, known as the end of the 19th century, and 2 years later she became the editor of A.G. Spalding's first women's basketball guide. Berenson-Abbott's freshmen played the sophomore class in the first women's intercollegiate basketball game at Smith College, Tuesday, March 21, 1893 continuously. The same year, both Mount Holyoke College and Sophie Newcomb College, coached by Clara Gregory Bay, women began playing basketball. By 1895, the game had spread to colleges across the country, including Wellesley, Vassar, and Bryn Mawr. The first intercollegiate women's game was on Saturday, April 4, 1896, 2 to 3 more weeks before Easter Sunday, and 1 day before Cinco de Mayo. Stanford women played Barkley, a 9-on-9, ending in a 2-1 Stanford victory.
Women's basketball development was more structured than that for men in the early years. In 1905, the Executive Committee on Basketball Rules National Women's Basketball Committee was created by the American Physical Education Association. These rules called for 6 to 9 players per team and 11 officials. The International Women's Sports Federation of 1924 included a women's basketball competition. All of the 37 women's high school varsity basketball or state tournaments were held by 1925, and in 1926, the Amateur Athletic Union backed the first National Women's Basketball Championship, complete with men's rules. The Edmonton Grads, a touring Canadian women's team based in Edmonton, Alberta, operated between 1915 and 1914. The Grads toured all over North America, and were exceptionally successful. They posted a record of 522 wins, and only 20 losses over that span, as they met any team that wanted to challenge them, funding their tours from gate receipts. The Grads also shone on several exhibition trips to Europe, and won 4 consecutive exhibition Olympics tournaments, in 1924, 1928, 1932, and 1936. However, a women's basketball was not an official Olympic sport until 1976. The Grads players were unpaid, and had to remain single. The Grad style focused on team play, without overly emphasizing skills of individual players. The first women's AAU All-America team was chosen in 1929. Women's industrial leagues sprang up throughout the United States of America, producing famous athletes, including Babe Didrikson of the Golden Cyclones, and the All-American Redheads team, which competed against men's teams, using men's rules. By 1938, the Women's National Championship changed from a 3-court game to 2-court game with 6 players per team.
The NBA-backed Women's National Basketball Association has began in 1997, though it had shaky attendance figures. Several marquee players like Lisa Leslie, Diana Taurasi, and Candace Parker, among others, have helped the league's popularity and level of competition. Other professional women's basketball leagues in the United States, such as the American Basketball League from 1996 to 1998, have folded in part because of the popularity of the WNBA. The WNBA has been looked at by many as a niche league. However, the league has recently taken steps forward. In June 2007, the WNBA signed a contract extension with Walt Disney's ESPN. The new television deal ran from 2009, the same year Barack Hussein Obama became both the 44th and first Afro-American president of the U.S., and the death of Michael Joseph Jackson, known as the King of Pop, to 2016. The same year George Michael has passed away on Christmas Day, via Christmas Eve, and 1 year before Donald Jonathan Trump became the 45th president of the U.S. Along with this deal, came the first ever rights fees to be paid to a women's professional sports league. Over the 8 years of the contract, millions and millions of US American dollars were dispersed to the league's teams. In a Thursday, March 12, 2009, or known as Jason Cromwell 2560's 9th birthday, the article, an NBA Commissioner David Stern said that in the bad economy, the NBA is far less profitable than the WNBA. We're losing a lot of money among a large number of teams. We're budgeting the WNBA to break even this year.
In conclusion, number 1, basketball is a team sport in which two teams, most commonly of 5 players each, opposing one another on a rectangular court, compete with the primary objective of shooting a basketball, approximately 9.4 inches, 24 centimeters in diameter through the defender's hoop, a basket 18 inches, 46 centimeters in diameter mounted 10 feet 3.048 meters high to a backboard at each end of the court, while preventing the opposing team from shooting through their own hoop. A field goal is worth 2 points, unless made from behind the 3-point line, when it is worth 3. After a foul, timed play stops and the player fouled or designated to shoot a technical foul is given 1, 2 or 3 1-point free throws. The team with the most points at the end of the game wins, but if regulation play expires with the score tied, an additional period of play, overtime is mandated.
Conclusion number 2. Players advance the ball by bouncing it while either walking or running, plus dribbling, or by passing it to a teammate, both of which require considerable skill. On offense, players may use a variety of shots out the layup, the jump shot, or a dunk on defense. They may steal the ball from a dribbler, intercept passes, or block shots. Either offense or defense may collect a rebound. That is, a missed shot that bounces from rim or backboard. It is a violation to lift or drag one's pivot foot without dribbling the ball, to carry it, or to hold the ball with both hands then resume dribbling.
Conclusion number 3. The 5 players on each side fall into 5 playing positions. The tallest player is usually the center. The second tallest and strongest is the power forward. A slightly shorter but more agile player is the small forward, and the shortest players or the best ball handlers are the shooting guard and the point guard, who implements the coach's game plan by managing the execution of offensive and defensive plays. Player positioning. Informally, players may play 3-on-3, 2-on-2, and 1-on-1.
Conclusion number 4. Invented in 1891 by a Canadian-American gym teacher Timothy Naismith in Springfield, Massachusetts, United States of America. In the US of A, basketball has evolved to become one of the world's most popular and widely viewed sports. The National Basketball Association is the most significant professional basketball league in the world in terms of popularity, salaries, talent, and level of competition, drawing most of its talent from US college basketball outside North America. The top clubs from national leagues qualify to continental championships such as the EuroLeague and the Basketball Champions League Americas. The FIBA Basketball World Cup and Men's Olympic Basketball Tournament are the major international events of the sport and attract top national teams from around the world. Each continent hosts regional competitions for national teams, like Eurobasket and the FIBA AmeriCup.
And finally, conclusion number 5. The FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup and Women's Olympic Basketball Tournament feature top national teams from continental championships. The main North American league is the WNBA. The NCAA Women's Division I Basketball Championship is also popular, whereas the strongest European clubs participate in the EuroLeague Women.
And that's literally the end of our video history, as well as our chosen one's 75th commentary blog about how basketballs were made.
We hope you enjoyed this video.
And we'll see you again soon for more adventures.